So today I'm answering a question I found from Reddit that goes, is this just what marriage becomes? So the guy says he's in his mid 30s, married for several years now. From the outside, everything looks perfect. He's got a stable job, healthy child, responsibilities handled, and a peaceful home. No drama, no toxicity, no fighting. Great, man. But inside, I feel like a version of myself has slowly disappeared. Over the last few years, our relationship has shifted from being partners to being highly efficient roommates. We're a great team. We talk about groceries, the toddler's schedule, bills, and house maintenance. We function like a well-oiled machine, but the emotional and physical connection has faded into the background. Everything is fine, and that's almost the confusing part. There's no reason to be unhappy, yet I feel this underlying emptiness. I find myself missing that feeling of being desired, the intensity and the attention that used to be there before life became a series of routines and responsibilities. I catch myself wondering, is this just adulthood? Is this just what happens to long-term marriages after the newness wears off and kids enter the picture? I love my family. I'd never do anything to hurt them, but I sometimes feel guilty for craving that spark again. Does anyone else feel like they're just functioning rather than truly living in their marriage? How do you move past the roommate phase when life is so busy? Great question, dude from Reddit. By the way, if you're watching my videos and you enjoy my channel and you want me to answer a question for you, it's real simple. I read my comments. So just put a question in the comments down below and I'll read it out and give you an answer in another Yo Elliott video. But today, we found something on Reddit. So I want to address this guy by saying, first of all, there's a lot of grace in your life. There's a lot of great things going on. The fact that you and your wife have a marriage and a family that is functioning like a well-oiled machine and you have no toxicity is great. And I want to kind of elaborate on that for just a moment, because there is a word in our culture that has taken on a lot of negative associations, but yet it's what we truly want. And that word is contentment. Contentment is like a bad word. If you listen to a lot of the success gurus on YouTube and so forth, they'll say it with disdain, like you just became content. You and your marriage, you and your wife, you and your family are content. But what is the antithesis to contentment? Passion, excitement, adventure, high ideals, grandiosity, going big, going for the goal. But here's the thing with that. Contentment is our natural state. It's equilibrium. It's homeostasis. It's where we're meant to be most of the time. Early in your relationship, you had a lot of the grandiose emotions associated with newness, and there were no other distractions. You lived your life, she lived her life, and you came together and you spent time together, and it was all about one another. And so you decided to get together. And when you get together, you move into a new phase. Another thing you spoke about here that I like, a word that you use that I like, is phase. We're moving into a phase. You say it's the roommate phase. Okay, you call it that. Let's step back for a moment, because I'm calling it the contentment phase. And it is a beautiful phase if you give up your addiction to grandiosity, your addiction to passion, your addiction to excitement, your addiction to the dopamine hit that most people spend their life chasing. It's kind of like if you're an alcoholic or somebody who's on drugs. And when you use the drugs, I mean, it's euphoric. It feels great. You're out of body. Like when you're falling in love and the relationship is new, you're out of body. You've fallen in love. You're beside yourself, just like somebody who's on drugs. And there's all kinds of emotions associated with it. But when you come off the drug, life is boring because you don't have that high anymore. And you have to learn how to be content with the boredom. My son, he's 15 years old, and a lot of you guys can probably relate. He likes to play video games. And sometimes we'll have conversations about how it's good, son, to break away from the stimulation of the video game so that you can embrace boredom. And embracing boredom allows you to, well, How many people go into dopamine detox? It's a detox from the constant need for excitement. And you're starting to experience that in your marriage. You're experiencing an opportunity to be content and to embrace the boredom, the monotony, the routine of real life, right? Like when you come off of drugs, right? If you've been addicted to drugs, you've been using drugs, you're always on drugs and drugs feel good. When you come off the drugs, life is kind of boring for a little while. You got to find contentment in the humdrum, the boredom, because that's what life is. Life is ultimately equilibrium. Life is ultimately the steady chopping of wood, carrying of water. It's just doing the things that are in front of you without seeking the past, what used to be, or chasing a future ideal or castles in the sky. Man, but I can't help to think like this state of just doing what's in front of you, chopping wood and carrying water, is actually very masculine in nature. Generally speaking, the masculine man is content doing what he's got in front of him, just doing his work. Just think about like the farmer, right? The farmer of like the 1800s. He gets up every day, he rubs his eyes, it's 4 a.m, and he gets out and he does his work. And he does that every year, every decade, his entire life, and thinks nothing of anything else. He doesn't think about where's the excitement, where's the passion, where's the pleasure. No, he does what's in front of him, and he allows the rhythm of life, right? The seasons of change to just take its course. And then he adapts to the seasons of change. Winter's going to be a lot different than spring. So the excitement isn't acute. It's just a constant responding to what actually is. But the antithesis to this, and what I see from you here, when you say, here are your words. We function like a well-oiled machine, but the emotional and physical connection has faded into the background. It says, I find myself missing the feeling of being desired. This is the part. The intensity and the attention that used to be there. Life became a series of routines and responsibilities. You actually sound a lot like a woman. The major reason why women divorce men is why? Because they can't embrace the boredom of natural, normal life and taking seasons in stride. And they normally say stuff like this. This usually comes out of the mouths of women. If you talk to divorce lawyers, you'll hear, I miss that feeling of being desired, the intensity of the attention that I used to get before we started real life together. This addiction to intensity, this needing to be desired is very effeminate. And when I say effeminate, I mean it's this attachment to pleasure and aversion to challenge, aversion to pain, that makes us do anything that we can do to get out of, to discharge, to resist and move away from what's actually normal and natural about life. Life is contentment. And if you can find contentment in the day-to-day situations, you're free. It's the ultimate freedom. Contentment is the ultimate freedom because there's no hankering, there's no desiring, there's no needing, there's no fearing. You got all kinds of fears here associated with this as well, because just like the drug addict that didn't get his drug, he'll do anything to get it because he's afraid. He feels like he's going to fall apart until he gets his next high. And you, my man, you're chasing highs. You're chasing highs and you're having very short, limited time frame thinking. You're very attached to getting the constant stimulation of desire and excitement, not realizing that, well, in order for the beauty of spring, the budding of flowers, the producing of fruits, the birds singing, for you to really appreciate that, for you to really appreciate spring and summer, right? Drinking lemonade, eating strawberries, girls in their sundresses, right? All the beauty that we associate with spring and summer is only available to us in the contrast of fall and winter. You need the winter to appreciate the summer. Because if you have all summer, it's going to be sticky sweet and cloying, disgusting. Like, you know, these stories about the children of celebrities, or like the children of really wealthy world rulers, these kids who have everything. They have everything. Anything that they want. Any pleasure that they desire. Every whim they can fulfill. But yet, what happens? They're miserable. They're disgusted with their lives. And they'll do all kinds of things to discharge that that bombardment of pleasure. So they'll throw themselves into all kinds of challenging situations. They'll denounce their wealth. They'll, out of a sense of like wanting something deeper, they'll go into dangerous hobbies and habits. Because if you have all daylight, you have all sunshine, you have all sweetness, it's not equilibrium. There's no contentment. There's always chasing the next thing. And I'm talking about seasons for a reason, my man, because you notice that there is a season. You're in a season. If you really love your wife, you love your child, you're going to understand that this doesn't last forever. The season you're in is not going to last forever. This is coming from a guy who married his high school girlfriend. I've been together with my wife for 35 years. And we've got 4 children. And we've been through so many seasons. I remember the season that I was in when I was in your shoes. I was in my early 20s at the time, or a little bit later. But during this season, I remember that it was head down, nose to the grinder, working my face off, trying to pay our bills, trying to put food on the table for my wife, who was at home with the baby, pregnant belly, and doing her best to keep the home in order. And during that season, man, really, the excitement was working day to day, facing the challenges of building a business, and then coming home and seeing my wife and seeing my children. And for her, the excitement was, well, we made a lot of babies. The excitement is, wow, we got a new one on the way. Woo, glee. It makes her day. Normal, humdrum, basic wood chopping, water carrying things to settle into contentment with. But that was one season. Once my kids got to a certain age, we started getting babysitters. And we had a renaissance of excitement in our lives. Once my children, you know, they were a bit older, they didn't have her tit in the mouth all the time. They didn't need her constantly. And I had a little bit of money. We started partying. See, we started our family when most guys were still out partying. In their early 20s, most of our friends, you know, the guys and the girls were out partying. They're all doing their exciting thing. You probably was doing that. You got addicted to that. But I never got addicted to that. I was working. I was content doing what was in front of me. But then when I was about 30, around your age, around 35 or so, there was a renaissance of pleasure in our lives. And we started going out at night. We started going on little vacations together. We started having more and exciting sex as a result. Children were grown. Now the children are grown. And it's a totally different story. My kids don't need me. Our kids don't need us anymore. So we spend even more time together. And you know what we love doing more than anything? Just being content with one another. We don't need any excitement. I'm 47 years old. I don't want any excitement. I don't need any desires. I don't need any intensity. I don't want more attention. And neither does she. We love to just sit in the backyard, sip wine, and scroll on our phones, and it's perfect. But on the outside looking in, somebody might say, look at this content couple. They'll never last. Because we're not, salsa dancing? Right? Because I'm not chasing around the kitchen table? No, we're in a brand new season, and that season comes with its blessings. And guess what? A new season is arising because I'm going to be a grandfather soon. And my wife is all kinds of excited because the grandbaby's coming. So, I mean, you got to understand, number one, that life is about being content. You need to learn how to be content. We all need to learn how to be content. Don't see contentment as a bad thing. Contentment is the frequency of life. Contentment is the purpose of life. To be. To be content is to be. Not chasing, not needing, not hankering, not desiring like you're asking right now, because that is going to fall flat. It always ends up empty. Chasing and needing, desiring and intensity always come back and bite. They burn you out. And you become addicted to it, and then you need it in everything. Like my son with the video games. And part of the reason why I tell him like he's got to be bored sometimes is because life is boring. The high stimulation of the game, bombs going off and things zipping around, and always it's a battle or a war. When you get out into real life, it's really slow. It's really boring. It's very bland. The colors aren't as bright. But it's where life happens. Life doesn't happen in the peak. Life happens in the equilibrium. But even in the equilibrium, there are little seasons. There are little cycles. And the minute trust me, you think things are stable right now, but your child is a toddler, in 5 years, your child won't be a toddler anymore, and you're going to take on a whole new season. And then 5 years from there, and then 10 years from there, and 50, there's a whole new season. If you're going to be with your wife forever, be prepared to enjoy her in different seasons. You enjoyed her when you were dating, and you'll enjoy her when you're dying if you're content with the day-to-day and you roll with the seasons. So that's it. That's all. That's my advice on that, y'all. Done.